So I was hoping we could just talk about how you joined Team Snowden. How did this all happen?
Yeah. Well, I learned Edward Snowden's name the same day you did, when that riveting video was posted to the Guardian's website with Glenn Greenwald interviewing Edward Snowden and Ed explaining to the world who he was and why he had done what he did. And there were certainly a bunch of us gathered around a screen at the ACLU watching this to see who had really started this earthquake. By then it was already an enormous debate in the US, and it's only grown since then. But I knew about Ed Snowden before I knew his name. And that's because I've known Laura Poitras and Glenn Greenwald for many years, had informally advised Laura about various issues, so I knew that she had received these anonymous communications from someone purporting to be a senior level official in the intelligence community who had extremely important information to share, and had talked to her regularly up to the time when she made that trip to Hong Kong. At that point, I was not in contact with him. Remember, Snowden could not consult with any lawyer before he did what he did. He didn't want to jeopardize anybody else's legal situation. He wanted this to be on himself. And so I was first put in touch with him by Glenn Greenwald when he was stranded for 39 days, I think it was, in the transit zone in Moscow, when we first began to exchange encrypted communications at that time. So I guess that was the first week of July.
Sure. So you were kind of helping him figure out where in the world he could go at that point, what his legal options were.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I guess this is in some ways a pretty unusual legal representation. Ordinarily you want what is best for the client. In this case it would be finding a place for him to live where he wouldn't be behind bars, preparing for legal jeopardy that he might face if he came to the US, making sure we had the right team in place. If that happened, at that time it was very much up in the air where he would end up. But this is a slightly different client. This is someone who put his ideals ahead of his own safety, who really did risk everything because he wanted to start this debate. So it's important to keep that in mind always during this representation. He doesn't want to do things that help him but hurt the reform debate. And so we have had to balance all along what's best for Edward Snowden in terms of his being able to live freely to participate in this debate, and also what will facilitate and not interfere with the democratic debate that his disclosures have set off.
So what, and you're a member of a legal team, you have other lawyers that are working with you. What are you guys trying to accomplish right now? Kind of what are you doing day to day? Are you talking to law enforcement here in the US about their case?
Yeah, so there are, as you said, people other than me who are working on this team. Jesselyn Radak from the Government Accountability Project has been a really passionate and eloquent defender of Ed in the press and has a lot of expertise with whistleblower issues. There, of course, are people who are experts in criminal law who have been in contact with the government. We have experts in asylum law. We have lawyers working with us in Europe and elsewhere who are, both trying to see whether there might be a time where Snowden could live somewhere other than Russia, but also, and this is very critical, helping to push the debate, not just in the United States, but around the world. You might have seen this week, Ed submitted written testimony to a European Parliament committee. And that's because the reforms that are necessary now are not just going to come out of US courts and the US Congress. Mass surveillance has become so cheap that the US is at the vanguard, but these kinds of tools are going to be available to all governments and are a threat to all free societies. And so, any lasting reform is going to be the result of a global conversation, not a US conversation.
And how has it changed things for you to be Snowden's lawyer? Just kind of in your day-to-day, I imagine you're communicating with him frequently. I imagine you're getting a ton of requests from people who want to talk to him. How have things changed for you in the last, year?
I definitely have had more steak sandwiches bought by TV network executives. No, look, it is, it's the work of a lifetime. I had spent almost 10 years before this trying, and I say trying, to bring lawsuits against the intelligence community, trying to hold the CIA accountable for a rendition and torture program, trying to hold the Defense Department accountable for, torturing Jose Padilla in a prison here, trying to litigate the legality of watch lists and other surveillance programs. And virtually every time you bring one of these cases to a court, the government doesn't defend it on the grounds of legality. They say you have no right to be in court, either because the program is too secret, or because you don't have legal standing to bring the challenge, or because the people you're suing are immune for one reason or another. But when people say Ed Snowden should have gone through the system, that's the system they're talking about. The system that I've been going through for all these years. And so in one of probably the first conversation that I had with Snowden, one of his first questions for me was, "Do you have standing now?" He'd been watching these cases. He'd been watching us try to get these issues adjudicated by federal courts. He's not a lawyer. It didn't make any sense to him that we could go into a federal court with a constitutional challenge and be thrown out without the court ever even answering the question. The first document that was published by The Guardian was an order from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to Verizon Business Records, ordering it to turn over on a daily basis all the telephone metadata of all of its customers. Well, one of its customers is the ACLU. He gave us a ticket to federal court there. And so, it's a roundabout way of saying, I feel like a lot of the work that I had done, sort of pointed to this moment, led up to this meeting of Snowden and the ACLU. And while it's been, sort of hugely disruptive of, my normal day-to-day, I'm a much worse supervisor of the people who I work with, than I was 9 months ago. At the same time, morale in our office is very, very high now. We feel like we've been banging our heads against a wall for 10 years, and all of a sudden the wall's not there. And, we're in the conversation that we want to be in.